Hey guys, thanks for watching TFB TV. I'm Joel, and today I've got a scope comparison for you. We're going to be comparing a $2,500 scope to a $400 scope. Now, why in the world would we want to do that? It seems like they're in different categories, different classes. Well, that's because they are. One is kind of a hard use, law enforcement, military competition style scope. The other would be something that you would go backyard plinking with, probably hunting with. So what's the point of comparing things like this? Well, it's because a lot of shooters out there think you can get by with putting a $400 scope on a $5,000 custom competition rifle, and it's just as good. So I'd kind of like to dispel some of those myths today. I've got 5 categories that I look at when evaluating what kind of an optic, what kind of glass I want to put on top of a rifle. First, I will say, buy once, cry once. You're going to get what you pay for in the long run. So I will preface by saying that. Now, the 5 criteria that I'm going to be looking at today are price, reticle, clarity, turrets, and tracking. So I'm going to go over each of those for each of the scopes briefly and give you a rundown of them, and hopefully you'll be able to see in the video that one really is kind of better than the other. Alright, so let me introduce you to the scopes here. On my custom competition rifle, we've got the Leupold Mark 5. This is a 5 to 25 by 56 with a 35mm main tube. And down here on the Bergara, the stock Bergara, we've got an Athlon Argos BTR. That is a 6 to 24 by 50 with a 30mm main tube. First thing I mentioned was price, all right? I kind of already said it, but $2,500 roughly for the Leupold, $400 roughly for the Athlon. Next, let's talk about the reticles. All right, so inside of the Leupold, we've got the Horus H59 reticle. What makes this a great choice for a lot of things from competition to hunting to military and law enforcement use is that grid system you see here. For example, I can take a shot at a target, and as long as I can spot my miss or my impact, that grid inside of there helps me with fast follow-up shots. For example, if I take a shot and I miss 1 mil low and 1 mil right, and I see my miss impact there in that corresponding box or that hash mark in that scope, I can then make that my new aiming point, put that over the top of the target that I want to hit, and send another round, and my chances of impacting increase greatly, and the speed at which I can do it increases. So the H59 reticle is a great choice. Inside the Athlon, we've got what they call their APMR, and that stands for Athlon Precision Mid-Range. And I definitely can see this being a mid-range optic only. And honestly, it kind of comes down to definitions. What is your definition of mid-range versus long-range? For me, my definition of mid-range probably goes out to 600 yards, where my definition of long-range goes out to about 1,200 yards. And extreme long-range is anything past that, to me. It's up for debate, but that's kind of where I go with that. Now, would I use the Athlon out to 600 yards? You can. But you're sacrificing some serious picture quality inside of there. Whereas the Leupold would handle that in stride, and all the way out to 1,200 yards is no issue. And beyond. The reticle on the H59 goes all the way out to, I think, 32 mils of adjustment. So you could use this optic on an extreme long-range gun. Another feature that I like to look at on these guys is the objective lens size, all right? And that really translates into how bright and clear the picture is that you're looking at. On the Leupold, we've got a 56mm objective and a 35mm main tube, which I said in the beginning, versus the Athlon has got a 50mm objective and a 30mm main tubes. It's not hard to tell the difference. You can see through the pictures that I have on the screen here. The Leupold has just got an edge-to-edge clarity. The image is crisp. It's almost like it's in high def. It's easy to see what you're looking at. Whereas the Athlon is kind of a gray look. It just doesn't look that crisp or clear. In fact, it almost looks blurry. So definite difference in quality there. And it kind of comes down to the coatings that are on the glass. You know, Leupold clearly uses a superior process there that allows their glass to transmit light and to be completely clear and crisp. So Leupold clearly wins in that category. So we've covered price, reticle, and clarity. Let's move on to turrets. So the Leupold turrets are really nice for a couple of reasons. One is the zero stop. You got this nice oversized button here on the top that you can just push in and move the turrets. You can also hear this. You know, it's almost like, if I could give you a word picture here, if you've ever felt a very crisp, clean, lightweight trigger, then you know kind of what this feels like with every turn or every click of the turret. It's kind of like breaking glass on every single click, and I love that. You can just tell that the internal quality is there. The zero stop is hugely important. So let's say I'm up to, you know, more than 2 revs or 3 revs above my limit on this scope. A couple of things come into play on this particular turret. I've got a little button, a little silver button that pops out on the very top of the turret, letting me know that I'm into the 3rd revolution of this scope. Now I start dialing that back down and that button starts to disappear, letting me know I'm in the 2nd revolution. And as I keep going, once I become into my 1st revolution, you'll notice the zero stop button has sunk in. Well, it will start popping back out. I can turn it all the way down, and it's a hard stop at my zero. That's very important. Whereas the Athlon, there's no zero stop at all. You can actually go quite a ways below your zero, and then it's just kind of an annoyance to have to dial back up to your zero. Also, covered windage knob on the Leupold is very handy. You know, in competition, we're banging these things up against barricades and you name it, and we don't want our windage knobs getting bumped. Okay, last thing we need is to be adding or subtracting wind value when we're really just trying to hold over for the current wind conditions. That would be bad. So the turrets on the Athlon are very spongy, very mushy and quiet. You can tell the internal quality is just not there. Not to mention they move really easily, and that's almost a bad thing, you know what I mean? Especially in our competition setting where we might bump it up against something. I can see especially that windage knob getting bumped inadvertently. That would not be good. One thing I failed to mention, I will just throw in there, the Athlon does come with a lighted reticle, and the Leupold does not. So that could help for some low light shooting, although I will say the Leupold, as it gathers more light and it transmits more light to the user, would be better at low light transmission. So finally, moving on to tracking. So I did a tall target tracking test on here, which consists of you know, squaring up a target with gravity, drawing some vertical lines on the target, and then making sure those lines on the target are squared with gravity, and then leveling your gun. And you make a group at 100 yards, and then using the same aiming point, you dial up to 1,000-yard dope on your scope, and you fire another shot. And if the scope is tracking true, your group at the bottom should be on your zero aiming point, and the group at the top should be right on the line or very, very close to it at the 1,000-yard spot. So both of these scopes tracked very true. I was surprised actually by the Athlon. I did not expect it to track true all the way out to 1,000 yards, especially since it's more of a mid-range scope, but it did just fine. So in summary, here's the question that needed to be answered. Can I use both of these scopes to make impacts at long range on targets or animals? The answer is yes. They both function. They'll both work just fine. The Leupold, it just does it more efficiently and with quite a bit more class. You know, just got a better glass, better turrets, better reticle. Definitely got to give the thumbs up to Leupold on this optic. You know, I switched off of a Vortex Razor Gen 2 to this, and I will not be going back. Now, on the Athlon, where this fits. If you're a hunter looking for you know, a low price optic that'll get the job done, you're going to put it on your Ruger American or your TC rifle, that Athlon optic would be right at home in that kind of an environment. Now, what kind of a person would use the Leupold? Well, if you're a precision marksman, serious marksman, or you're in law enforcement or military, or you do PRS style competitions, the Leupold would give you everything you need and then some. And I would argue, and I've used Night Force, I've used Vortex, I've looked through Collis scopes, and the Leupold is absolutely brighter and clearer edge to edge than anything on the market right now. And I believe that is saying a lot. I think Leupold has done some pretty great things with this optic and at an awesome price point. You know, when you compare the $2,500 or $2,000 in some cases Leupold Mark V, you know, to a high-end Collis at $3,300 or a Tangent Theta at $4,500, you really can't go wrong with this Leupold Mark V. So with all that being said, guys, hopefully you got a little something out of this review and are able to make a wise purchase if you choose to go down this road. Let me take a minute to thank our sponsor, Ventura Munitions. Those guys over there make this all possible, and I thank them very much. And thank you so much for watching TFB TV.